I'm Trisha Murray and welcome to the Birth and Baby Academy. How are you feeling about your birth? Are you feeling excited and positive, or are you feeling nervous and apprehensive? All of these are valid reasons, but I know that birth can be positive. I've worked with hundreds of women over the years in groups and one-to-one, pre-birth, during birth and post-birth, so they're able to reflect positively on their birth experiences. Today we're going to be talking about what if we organised our births as we did our weddings and what effect that would have on our birth experiences. At the end of this video, I invite you to go to the birthandbabyacademy.com and download my free pregnancy roadmap, which is a guide to help you at each stage of your pregnancy so you can plan for a much better birth experience. So let's get into the topic in a bit more detail. What if we were to organise our births as we did our weddings? Now, I appreciate that not everybody watching this video will be married, and half of you might not be, but just for a moment, just hypothetically think how you would organise your wedding if you were to do so. Now, did you know that in the UK, the average wedding will cost around £20,000 and women will spend, on average, 11 hours a week planning their weddings? Now, just to think what kind of birth you would have if you were to have £20,000 and spend 11 hours a week planning your birth. So I want you for a moment now to think about how you would organise your wedding and how you would plan. And some of the things that you might do would be to read magazines, read blogs. Maybe you've been at weddings and there's things that you've really liked about them. So there's lots of elements that you will pick and so many different choices to make. And there's things that you will choose to do and things that you think aren't for you, you won't do. But with a birth, it can be very different. And often we don't think that we have choices and that we can make choices. And we don't really embed ourselves in the same literature. So we maybe read some stories, but because there's so many negative stories and so much negative portrayal of birth, such as one born every minute, then we can start to get ourselves into a really sort of negative thinking around birth and thinking that that's how birth needs to be. But actually, birth can be completely different when you know what choices are available to you and how you can navigate the system. One of the things that's different between organising and planning a wedding and organising and planning your birth is that often we'll have been at weddings before, so we know how they run. With a birth, that rarely happens. It's rare that you've been a birth until your own birth. And what happens with us is that we get led along by the system. Now, this isn't to say that the people who work in the system, that is the maternity system of NHS, don't try to help us, because the vast majority are absolutely amazing. We have got great resources, great people that work there. But if you don't know what choices are available within that system, how can you plan the birth that you want? I believe strongly you can have a positive birth experience within the NHS system when you know how to navigate it. So let's take two women. The first woman is Katie. She's fairly relaxed about her birth. She thinks everything's going to be absolutely fine. She's signed up to her NHS classes, NCT classes. She's got a couple of books around birth. She's got a hypnobirthing book. She's downloaded some MP3s to help her to relax around her birth. So it gets to her due date and baby's not here. So she's thinking, where's this baby? And she goes to see the midwife, and the midwife says to her, well, why don't we book you in for induction 10 days in 10 days time, which is quite normal, and that's one of the very common routine processes that happens within the NHS. So 10 days after her due date, nothing has happened, and she goes in for the routine induction. And like many other women, she's in there for a few days going through the induction process and ends up with a caesarean birth at the end of that. So let's take another woman, very typical of many women that I work with, Julie. Julie decides that she's going to get herself really informed around birth. And what she does is she signs up for her NHS classes, NCT classes, and she goes to pregnancy yoga, she goes to a hypnobirthing class. She joins her local positive birth movement. And by doing so, she starts to really understand how the local maternity system works. She works through all her fears and beliefs around birth, and she really focuses in on having a positive mindset. She joins lots of different Facebook groups, she follows different people on Instagram, she reads lots of positive birth blogs. She really gets herself to the point that she understands all the different decisions and choices that she can make around her birth and all the different elements that she can choose. She goes to see her midwife around her due date, and the midwife says to her, I'd like to book you in for an induction in 10 days' time because that is what our local guidelines tell us to do. However, Julie decides that she's going to decline that because she knows that that's her choice. And she knows that 2 weeks after her due date, she can still be pregnant and she can choose to have expectant management. So expectant management is where women are monitored every couple of days to ensure the health of the baby and the health of the mother, and everything is well and no medical issues have arisen. And she experiences at 42 weeks a beautiful home birth with all the things that she had decided on in her birth plan. Julie gets to 40 weeks and she goes to see her midwife for a routine appointment. And the midwife says to her, I'd like to offer you an induction in 10 days' time. And Julie turns around to the midwife and she says, thank you so much for offering me that, but I'm going to choose to decline that because I believe my body will birth when it's meant to. And it might be beyond my due date. It might be 2 weeks after my due date. So she decides to opt that if she gets to 2 weeks after her due date, she will follow the National Institute for Clinical Excellence, their guidelines around expectant management, which would mean that she would go in for monitoring every couple of days. That would be monitoring for her and her baby to make sure that they are both well and their health is perfect. She gets to 2 weeks beyond her due date and she goes into spontaneous labour and experiences a beautiful birth at home. Katie is very typical of many of the women that come to see me in my birth trauma recovery clinic, who really struggle with their birth experience and really haven't understood what's actually happened to them and have felt at times very out of control and they've not felt safe. Julie is absolutely typical of one of my clients or one of the women that attends our local positive birth movement group, because she's really informed around all her choices and around how to navigate the system and when she can choose to have a treatment and when she can decline. She's invested her time and money wisely to experience a much better birth. You see, most mums, they don't believe that they can do that and that they can take control of their birth. They spend more time researching their buggy choices than they do their birth choices. Whilst I'm a huge fan of the NHS and I absolutely love it and I've experienced personally and have witnessed lots of really positive experiences, can you imagine if the NHS was put in charge of organising your wedding and what the outcome would be? I believe strongly that when we have a better birth experience where we feel safe and in control, we can parent our babies out of love rather than from a place of recovery. And that is why I really believe that all women should be able to have a better birth experience. So what are you going to commit to today? What are you going to do? How are you going to plan? Where are you going to invest your time and money so that you can have a much better experience? I invite you to go to thebirthandbabyacademy.com and download the free pregnancy roadmap, which is a step-by-step guide through each stage of your pregnancy to help you plan and prepare for a much better birth experience. And don't forget to include your partner. They are an equal person in this process, and it's absolutely vital that they are working with you on this, so together you can experience a much better birth. Having a positive birth experience doesn't come from inaction, it comes from planning and preparation and looking at your mindset, looking at working to the system and working through all your fears and beliefs. So what are you going to commit to today? It's time for you to relax deeply, learn wisely and experience a much better birth.